Hello friends, in today's video, I'll be creating some meals with ingredients I have on hand. I have some refrigerator items that need to be used, and I'll also be using items from my pantry to make simple but delicious budget recipes. I'll be sharing with you a little about my difficult past week and why you haven't seen me for a couple weeks. And finally, we'll be talking about egg substitutes because the high cost of eggs has definitely become a problem for those on a tight budget. I need to decide on a recipe for this napa cabbage, also known as Chinese cabbage. I picked this up at H Mart recently. I plan to use it in some stir fries, but I just never did, so I want to use this before it goes bad. I strive to have zero waste in my kitchen, so sometimes that means coming up with recipes for items that are stale or going bad. There are a couple of recipes that come to mind that this would be perfect for. I could make cabbage rolls with a rice filling. I could also make some cabbage pancakes known as okonomiyaki. I've been wanting to make those on my channel and I just haven't gotten to it yet. Or I could make a Portuguese cabbage soup. I remember learning about that when I was researching for my last video. One of my viewers mentioned caldo verde to me, which translated means green broth. I believe that soup is the same as cabbage soup. It's just sometimes different greens are used. If I'm wrong, hopefully my Portuguese viewers will let me know. This looks like a nice mild recipe, and since I haven't been feeling that great this week, this soup looks like the perfect choice for me. I'm just going to be choosing to use some of the ingredients that I see in the majority of recipes, and we'll just see how it goes. Potatoes are a common ingredient in this soup, and I do have a few that are getting a little bit soft, which makes another good reason to choose this recipe. I'm planning to use this onion that's going bad, and I'll also be adding in celery, which isn't a common ingredient, but it will taste great in the soup. This reminds me of when I was talking to my viewer Susan a couple weeks ago when she was telling me about how in her family she makes what is known as stone soup. It's made from leftover veggies, pasta, cooked meats, sauces, pretty much anything that is left over or not enough to make a complete meal. She said it's never the same twice and always turns out surprisingly good. There's a European folk story behind the term stone soup, and in some cultures it's known as ox soup, button soup, nail soup, or wood soup. But as the story goes, some travelers came to a village carrying nothing more than an empty cooking pot. The villagers were unwilling to share any of their food with the travelers. The travelers went to a stream, filled a pot with water, dropped a large stone in it, and placed it over a fire. One of the villagers became curious and asked them what they were doing. The travelers said they were making stone soup, which tastes wonderful and which they would be delighted to share with the villager, although it still needs a little bit of garnish, which they were missing to improve the flavor. The villager, who anticipated enjoying a share of the soup, didn't mind parting with a few carrots, so those were added to the soup. Another villager walked by, also inquiring about the pot, and the travelers again mentioned their stone soup, which has not yet reached its full potential. More and more villagers walked by, each adding another ingredient. Finally, the stone is removed from the pot, and a delicious and nourishing pot of soup is enjoyed by travelers and villagers alike. Although the travelers have tricked the villagers into sharing their food with them, they have successfully transformed it into a tasty soup that is shared by all. I love that story, not just because it emphasizes the value of sharing, but also because I love soup and the versatility of it. As long as you have a soup base that you like, really anything can be added and it turns out great. I really think soup is the perfect budget food. From now on in my family, when I'm out of food, I'm going to be looking for odds and ends to make stone soup. For this recipe I'm making today, I'll put the ingredients list in the description, but it's basically just cabbage, potatoes, celery, onions, garlic, and some bouillon for flavoring. If you're on a tight budget and you want to make this recipe, obviously you can substitute onion and garlic powder here. The tops of the celery sticks are my favorite part. They are so sweet and delicious. I'll be using one of the not chicken bouillon cubes, and this will be for 4 servings, which will make it fairly low sodium, but you can add more if you like, or you could also use a chicken broth or a vegetable bouillon. I'm also going to add a little bit of additional garlic powder. The not chicken bouillon is vegan and gluten-free. This dish is also vegan and gluten-free. Some people add sausage to this, but I don't have any, so it'll just be a vegetable soup for me. But I can definitely see how a smoked sausage would work well in this dish. By making this with the sausage and omitting some of the potatoes, this would definitely be a good low-carb dish for my viewers that are diabetic or eating a low-carb diet. I do love to make cornbread from scratch, but I seem to be using a lot of these corn muffin mixes lately. I purchased a large supply when these were on sale. In one of my last videos, I had a few people commenting on egg substitutions. Because the cost of eggs is so high right now, lots of people are looking to use other ingredients. There are lots of egg substitutions. I'll leave a list for you in the description. Some of the substitutions work better than others, depending on what you're making. I frequently use mashed bananas as a substitute in baking as well as making pancakes or muffins, and a good rule of thumb for that is a 1/4 cup substitution equals 1 egg. So in other words, a 1/4 cup banana is 1 egg. You can also use silken tofu for heavier applications like brownies or cookies, and if you're making something where you need whipped egg whites, aquafaba or the water from beans works great. If you happen to have either ground flaxseed or chia seeds, 1 tablespoon plus 3 tablespoons of water equals 1 egg. And for applications where you need a lighter density, 1 teaspoon of baking soda mixed with 1 tablespoon of vinegar equals 1 egg. There are also dried egg substitutes that use psyllium husk as a binder. I found this one on Amazon for $5, which replaces 34 eggs. My Walmart currently has 12 eggs for $5.34, so that's almost a third the cost. It might be a smart move to purchase one of these bags if you use eggs a lot in your cooking. Frequently, what I'll do is leave an ingredient out if I don't have it, so I thought it would be fun to try making this cornbread without an egg or any kind of substitution. As it is, I already substitute milk for water, and it turns out just fine. I thought this would be a great accompaniment to my soup, so let's see how this goes. I added 2 bay leaves to my soup, and I'm also going to add about 1/3 cup of rice just to make my soup a little bit heartier. Pineapple was on sale last week, so I've got some already chopped up in the fridge. Fruit is my favorite kind of dessert. I'll eat this later tonight when I want a snack. I'll add some pepper and then check to see if my rice is done. Wow, that is delicious. I'm really looking forward to eating a big bowl of this. So far, our cornbread that we made without eggs looks great. It looks like it has about the same amount of rice, but let's take a closer look at the texture. I can tell it's a little bit more crumbly than usual, but it actually looks pretty good. Some of the cornbread muffins were a little more crumbly than others, but overall, I was really happy with how these turned out, and I would definitely use this muffin mix without eggs again in the future. The soup was really delicious. The napa cabbage, or also known as Chinese cabbage, has a very mild flavor, and it worked really well in this soup. I love the addition that the small amount of rice added to this soup. I do often forget to add it to my soups, but I do really enjoy it. It makes it so much more filling. I'll leave the recipe for this in the description area of my video. Unfortunately, at the beginning of last week, I was diagnosed with kidney stones. These little stones are made out of minerals and salts that form inside the kidneys. Once they leave the kidneys, they cause excruciating pain because they get stuck in these tubes, and it can literally take weeks to a month to pass. If that doesn't happen, then surgery or other means are used to remove the stones. Unfortunately, it's a relatively common phenomenon, and I'm still going through it, but hopefully it will be resolved soon. I normally wouldn't share this, but I do appreciate you guys showing up every week, so I wanted you to know why I didn't release a video last week. I wanted to make a recipe using canned tuna because we always have that in our pantry. I found a highly rated tuna melt recipe from Chef John, and I have all the ingredients I need, so I'll be making this for my oldest son today. Here are the ingredients I'll be using. I've got a little bit of mayo. I'll use a few capers, some chili garlic sauce. I'll use some celery, green onions, and I'm using this San Luis sourdough bread that I buy at Sam's Club in a pack of 2 for $6.57. This recipe called for 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, and I didn't quite have that much, but I'm sure it'll be fine anyway. It also called for little cubes of mozzarella cheese to be mixed in with the tuna, and I know that sounds a little weird. However, this recipe is highly rated, and lots of people love cheese on their tuna melt, so I thought I'd give it a try. However, the only mozzarella I have right now is in this shredded mix, so I'm just going to use a little bit of this. We're going to broil this so it should melt into the tuna and be amazing. First though, I'll use the toaster oven to broil the bread to the level of crispness that I want. I love using this bread for these types of sandwiches because the texture is perfect. Today I'm using a single slice of bread for an open-faced tuna melt. I'm extending the tuna to the edge of the bread so that the bread won't burn when I put this back in the toaster oven to finish cooking the tuna melt. Chef John's recipe called for cayenne pepper, but I'm going to be using paprika because it's much milder. It'll still give us a nice flavor and a beautiful red color. I think this looks pretty good. It had the perfect crunch when I cut into it, but unfortunately my dog Misha was barking at the same time I cut into it, so you'll have to take my word for it. Like I said earlier, I made this for Justin, so I'm gonna have him try it and let us know how it turned out.
Wow. That's really good.
You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you taste the capers in it?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Very good. Oh.
My son liked this recipe, so I'll count this as a success. That's it, friends. I hope you liked this week's video. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I'll see you next week.